the Athletic Football Show.
Welcome to the Athletic Football Show. I'm Robert Mays. Joining me tonight, it's my good friend Nate Tice. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. I'm super. Where do you want to begin with this? At first I was watching this. I almost tweeted this, and thank God I didn't. I almost tweeted this and said this game was supposed to be one of the entertaining games, and whoo! Thank God it ended up being very entertaining. But the tale of two halves. That's definitely how this game went.
There were about 2 minutes left when they were driving to go kick the game-winning field goal, and I'm sitting there in my basement, like, we have to do a podcast after this on video. I haven't done anything. I'm like in my sweats because I was going to get ready during the second half of the game. I was going to compose myself. So I'm sitting there with my basement shower on. ETN gets the 4th and 1 carry. My dog is barking. And there's just pure chaos for the last 4 hours. Oh my God. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I was doing some back of the napkin math very quickly before we started, because on the NFL Jesus system, they only have first half and final stats.
Yeah.
So Trevor was 10 of 24 for 77 yards in the first half.
Yeah.
He finished 28 of 47 for 288.
Okay.
So my crude math says that means in the second half of that game, he was 18 of 23 for 211 yards.
That's not bad. It was definitely after a few drives and him getting fooled a couple times, it was like, man, it's a playoffs, man. Might be, just treat him like a rookie. It's good jitters, get it out. But he came out in the second half and just the confidence he was showing and him rallying the teammates and everything, like even after he had made bad plays, him come to the sideline and saying stuff, and you could tell he was like, it's on me. And man, he came out in the second half, and the whole team, the whole Jaguars, they had just a great plan, and they never wavered. It was really kind of cool to see them kind of stick to the plan. It's plenty of runs, and Trevor with some great play designs as well.
Let's start with how the hole got dug. So when we were planning on what we were going to talk about on this show after the first half, I figured we would talk a lot about, man, what a game plan by the Chargers.
Yeah.
And what a game plan by Brandon Staley. Did a fantastic job of just making it hard on Trevor in a bunch of different ways. The best example being one that we don't need to show the play. We were going to, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
I think it was the third Asante Samuel interception.
Okay.
Jags used motion to try to get a man zone tell with Christian Kirk.
Yep.
Davis follows Christian Kirk across the formation, and then the Chargers play zone behind it.
Yep.
And Jags running a crosser, and Trevor thought, well, that's open. There's nobody there. And he throws it right to Asante Samuel in cover 2. That happened a bunch in the first half of the game. They're playing a lot of man on early downs, driving hard on everything underneath, playing a lot of sticky man coverage, disguising it well. Thought, man, they're just junk ball pitching their way to this game. And that's enough. Staley's still a really good game planner. We've seen what he's done over the last month and a half of the season, and they really jumped on this Chargers team. Didn't take advantage of all their opportunities, kicked too many field goals. The offense didn't look great, but it didn't end up mattering. You get up 27 at half and you kind of coast your way to a win. And what a great season for the Jags.
Yeah.
And the second half starts. So my big question to you, on the Jags offense side of this, what do you think were the biggest differences with the Jags offense in the second half of the game?
So in the first half, I'll start with the first half because, like you said, that interception that you just brought up was a great example of what's kind of Staley was doing, what the Chargers defense was doing. The Jaguars like to be in those 1-by-3 formations where Everett's the lone receiver and the 3 wide receivers to the other side. They would motion somebody across. That's where you're saying the man zone tell and switching to cover 2. And Jaguars love running crossers and drive concepts, mesh concepts, screens. And in the first half, the Chargers kept showing single high, man, cover 3 buzz, 3 weak, robber, just single high. And on third down, they'll go to cover 2. The second half, the Jaguars adjusted, not only just in the run game, they're like, okay, you're going to do this. We're going to run some more zone stuff that we can run against these fronts that you're showing, these single high fronts. We can't do inside zone because little dicey. You have too many guys, too many bodies for us to block. But also in the passing game, saw a lot more outbreakers happening. Saw a lot
Deep
more stuff,
outbreakers too,
which is good against cover 3 and single high coverages, just because you're attacking the leverage. And also just the underneath throws were a lot more available. And I think the underneath throws changed where Trevor thought he could get them. I think he thought, oh, well, if it's cover 6, I'm going to get him at one spot. I mean, I won't get into too much detail, but in between the seam and the numbers. And now it's in between the, not the seam and the numbers, the hash and the numbers. And now it's in between the hashes. It kind of just the check down area changed for him too, the areas that they attacked. And so just in the second half, I mean, the Zay Jones touchdown, the 39-yard touchdown was a beauty because they checked into it. They were that was a shot play territory. Anytime that kind of 30 to 40 yard area, that's a real green zone, gold zone, teams will call it, that, you're going to see some shot plays. They checked into that same formation, 1-by-3. And because they got cover 6 on that play. And what I thought was brilliant on it was they had Christian Kirk run right at Derwin James, and it tied down Derwin James. There's no one left to cover Zay Jones because he has
a vertical route. Again, pushing the ball down the field in the way that they didn't in the first half. And I think that was one of the biggest parts of this, is that they didn't do any of that. And then when they saw the way that the Chargers were playing them, they started taking obviously that's a huge vertical shot, but just all of those corner routes that we saw from them in the second half, that's just an area they weren't attacking in the first half.
Yep. The Chargers, it was a great game plan. Like I said, the interception, the second interception, I should say, on 4th down was the Jaguars were trying to go quick on it. They did a cheat account where the center grabs the ball and snaps it right away. So it's like a silent count. And the Chargers brought a slot pressure there. Again, it's playing off the single high stuff that they showed. Right guard Scherf and the center get occupied by a crosser or a crossing defensive lineman. Free runner in Trevor's face. They're playing physical on them. They just clamp down on them. But that was what's so nice about what the Jaguars did in the second half. Like you said, those deep outbreakers, they were attacking those areas that were given them because the Chargers were saying, we're going to load up with bodies in the box so you won't run on us. And we're going to challenge your receivers. We're going to press them and throw it outside, beat us on the outside, have Marvin Jones and Zay Jones beat us as opposed to Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram beat us. And it was working for a while until the Jaguars started to find answers, especially in the second half. But no, it was just a great opening punch and a great counter punch from the Jags. And they enough points were scored off of it before the Chargers were able to adjust.
I mean, the touchdown throw to Kirk, just really good ball placement working against Bryce Callahan. He hit another one on, I believe, the next drive on the right sideline. Same kind of deal. I mean, the ball placement from Trevor in the second half was really, really good. And you contrast that with what the Chargers offense looked like for most of this game.
Yeah.
And they couldn't run the ball, which we didn't think they would be able to. 2.9 yards per carry. And that includes, you take that out. So on running back runs, they had 20 carries for 55 yards in this game, which isn't surprising at all, given what the Jags run defense is and how the Chargers have run the ball this season. In terms of throwing the ball, they couldn't do that either.
No.
And they lived on 3rd down and Trevor and Justin Herbert escapes in this game.
Yep.
His ability to navigate the pocket, find guys late in the down. I actually thought the tackles played okay, considering it was a 3rd string left tackle and Trey Pipkins, who's been banged up all season against the edges. I thought the pass protection was actually okay. When it wasn't, he did a really good job of navigating the pocket. And then on 3rd down in this game, I mean, their 3rd down efficiency in this one was 8 of 17.
Yeah. 17 downs.
You go 8 of 17 and 17 third downs, but you go 8 of 17 on 3rd down and you win the turnover battle by 5.
Yeah.
And you lose. That is a truly disgusting performance from your offense down to down when you do that.
The second half, you brought up the running stats overall. They had 0 successful runs in the second half. The Chargers did. And you're not only just have to run the ball just because it has to be a part of your offense. You're trying to burn some clock. Even if you have a double-digit lead, you're still trying to milk some. And that leans into just even, like you said, it was disgusting. Like the most disgusting play to me was after the Jaguars scored to go 28 to 30. And so it was like 3 minutes and change, I believe, left, maybe about 4 for the Chargers. They come out in 13. So that is 4-minute offense territory. That is the offense is trying to burn the clock. Usually see a lot more heavy personnels. When I talk about situations in the NFL, this is one of them. And defense trying to get the ball back. Chargers come out 13 personnel with Joshua Palmer on the field. And I like Joshua Palmer, but he's a nice role player. But they're going run. We're running right here. Run. And they run a heavy play action play. the Chargers tight ends are not not what you like, who you want on the field to design this. Gerald Everett can make some mismatches for you, but other guys are whatever. And Joshua Palmer, again, a role player. Yeah, you get him because he's your blocking receiver, but then now you're kind of pigeonholing yourself. Where's the juice coming from? Who are you designing that play for? Everett maybe on a sail route. And sure enough, no one pops open. Justin Herbert takes a sack. That 4-minute drive is dead. And you can just feel the game go brrr, right after that. And sure enough, what happens on second and long? Screen, running back screen. It's just so by the books. There's no even the creativity, like the play action shot is so by the books. It's like, oh, this is my change up. This is by the books change up. And sure enough, the Jaguars just teed off on it and then got the ball back and won the game.
So many missed opportunities. I mean,
So
Herbert misses that throw in the end zone and they have to kick a field goal. I mean, that's one that's totally on him, but you could just feel how little juice the offense had overall. And then you lose DeAndre Carter at one point, which if your offense losing DeAndre Carter is somehow this death knell to your passing game, that's when you know you're in trouble. But that was the state of the receiving core coming into this game. I mean, you're down to Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer, and Michael Bandy at one point. And that's brutal. And then you have your third string left tackle in there. And then on defense, Michael Davis getting hurt and Jasir Taylor going in there did end up mattering. He got dinged for the pass interference. They had a quick comeback to Marvin Jones that was the type of play that they've been shutting down the entire game. And then you can just feel it start to slip away.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that whole second half, it was like they came out and it just felt like that. I mean, when the when the Jaguars scored and they did the 2-point play, after Bosa gets kicked out of the game, they're doing the 2-point play.
He didn't get kicked out.
Right, with
he didn't get kicked out. I don't think he played the rest of the game though. So even that little part of the meltdown is just really frustrating to watch.
Well, the other thing was, of course, the Chargers hurry up play. When they have a play that might get challenged, is stick 2x2 stick, which I thought was very funny. But how about, can we talk about the 4th and 1? That was pretty sweet from the Jaguars.
I wanted to talk about just the mindset they brought into that half period.
Yeah,
the fact that it was never over. You could feel that it was. They never thought it was over. Going for 2 after getting that penalty and saying, "All right, we're going to put ourselves in a position to kick this field goal," and then having that 4th and 1, and instead of just sneaking it, saying we can go for the throat right here.
Yeah,
that's who Doug Peterson was all year, and it was fun to see that version of this team with their season on the line, pulling off one of the greatest comebacks that we've ever seen, capped off by a marvelous decision in that huge moment.
It was awesome. Well, and before it looked like sneak. I think everybody, even Tony Dungy, came alive for that, thinking it was going to be a sneak, and he lines up. And I mean, everybody, like before the timeout, everybody's within the tackles, the offensive tackles. I mean, there's like 5 defenders within there, just squeezed in. There's no gaps to be found. I actually originally thought Trevor was going to snap it and try and bounce it outside, which you'll see the quarterbacks do a little bit now. And they come out of that timeout, come out of the Chicago Bears fight song, the T formation. It was awesome. And the sweep to Etienne, it was awesome. You got Manhurts setting the edge. I mean, it was just a great counter. It was awesome. I mean, because that even kind of sells sneak a little bit, because it's like, oh, they're wedging it forward. Like they're gonna have those 3 guys run forward and push them. So even there's maybe that casts a little doubt, but it was awesome. Just a little. Yeah, talk about change-ups right there. Like, we're not going right up the middle. We're going to bounce it outside with the guy with crazy legs ETN, who's going to get to the edge no matter what. So awesome play. Even going for 2 and just the quickest 2-point conversion of all time. Trevor's sneak launch, quickest play of all time. It was like Derek Fisher against the Spurs. The 0.4 seconds. Yeah, like, that's what it felt like. It was just like boom, boom, done. I was like, what the hell just happened? He scored. Was there a penalty there? But yeah, Jaguars. I mean, right away they went for 4th down. Like even with the interception that Trevor had, they never lost that confidence, that aggression. It was awesome.
Part of me was a little bit disappointed in that we really liked watching this team for a good chunk of this year. And I think a lot of people who maybe didn't watch them as often as we did or as closely as we did, seeing them fall flat like this would be like, man, really? Like people were excited about the Jags at some point this year. And that's why so many of those moments in the second half were fun. Even this was a small one, but Fatou Kassi getting that sack after he made the play on the Trayvon Walker personal foul that ends up giving the Chargers another chance. It's almost like a ball don't lie thing for him, where he roasts Zion Johnson on that play action, the sack that you were talking about, and he makes a play. And then so you got that defensive injection that we did in the offseason that we had seen at other times this year. And then on offense, Christian Kirk making 2 or 3 monster catches in the biggest moment possible, and Trevor being that guy. You know, it was not a great first half. I think that the couple bad interceptions, the ones that Samuel where he doesn't read the coverage is where he gets tricked.
Truly on him. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he gets tricked on that one. The one that's the inbreaker where Samuel made a great play on it. That's not a great decision, but one was tipped and one was probably pass interference.
Yeah.
And so it's obviously not a great half when you throw 4 interceptions, but coming back and seeing him do what he did in the second half wasn't surprising if you've watched Trevor Lawrence play all season.
No, they've had multiple of these moments, multiple of these games, especially like huge deficits. The Ravens game, especially and not to get into like full blown like real life is Rudy moment, you know, or anything like that, or Hoosiers Hoosiers is based on real life, but those types of like sentimental moments. But they showed them on the yeah, I know. God dang it, there's a terrible analogy, but just showing them on the side. I'm talking about the Disneyfication of this. We're not. They're not our parent company. We're good. So it's just like any of the, like they showed him on the sideline, especially in the first half. He had the one bad play. Even last week when he had the bad pitch play against the Titans, he went right up to whoever they tried to pitch it. I think it was Tavon Austin. And he goes, that was high, wasn't it? My bad. He put his arm around him. They showed him. He was like, hey, my bad. Like he should. And when they started to make the comeback, they showed him on the sideline with the Microsoft Surface tablet. Sound like an advertisement now, just going like like pointing at it, and the whole offense is just locked in. It's like, man, they just compare these sidelines right now. One sideline is just absolutely needs to change their underwear, and the other sideline's like frothing at the bit just to get back out in the field because they feel like they have them on the ropes, and they did. They actually did. It wasn't just a fake confidence type of thing, but it's awesome because there's so many bad moments for that Jaguars offense and defense. Like, you know, like Chad Muma's getting torched by Gerald Everett for a touchdown. You know, Austin Eckler bounces and Tyson Campbell misses the angle, and it's like easy touchdown to bouncing. Trevor has his moments. The run game's not going. And then the second half, it was just not just Trevor, but just the whole team just had that confidence. The defense, you could feel them attacking the run game. So it was a fun story. And that's the thing. It's kind of cool to actually see them truly bounce back within the game in a playoff moment, not just like go like, oh, they came up short, maybe next year. These feisty Jaguars, the cardiac cats. No, they actually pulled it out, it's just astounding. It's a fantastic win for that team.
You contrast that feeling with what the Chargers must be feeling like right now, and I think now we're led to some pretty big questions. This is now going to all happen in the shadow of one of the biggest playoff collapses, if not the biggest playoff collapse that we've ever seen. There were already some conversations about decisions that the Chargers have made over the last couple of weeks, with Mike Williams getting hurt in that game because they played the starters, with this team underperforming last year. I don't want to be overly reactionary and have that color everything we think about what the Brandon Staley regime has looked like in Los Angeles. But as we talk about the aftermath of that game, what do you expect a reasonable set of moves and decisions to be for the Chargers organization?
I think Staley, the coach, just talking about X's and O's, really impressed me in the last stretch of the season and this first half of this game. But Staley as the head coach, kind of like the team just kind of lacked some stuff. And really, I think that starts with the offense. And of course, this team has just been decimated by injuries. So we always have to keep that in the back of our mind. But knowing that, not seeing adjustments throughout this year, the defense adjusted their asses off, especially when losing Bosa and other guys and guys bouncing around. The offense never had that same identity of versatility, especially even with the quarterback and all that. I think you have to address it in some way, shape, or form. I think Staley has coached has done a lot of good, as much as there's been moments that we're pointing at, especially in week 18 and the playing the starters type of thing. But there's also just been a lot of good. So it's like either path I understand in a weird way, but the offense has to be addressed in some way, shape, or form. If that's changing the head coach to an offensive-minded head coach, or if that's changing the coordinator if Staley stays. But I think what he's done with the defense as an X's and O's standpoint has been very impressive, and the team did fight back in the second half of the year. But there's always just that lacking, that feeling of want with this team a little bit, and that starts at the top.
Yeah, I have the same feeling where I just want more out of it. I don't think anybody who heard me talk about that team before the season started and heard some of my frustration as the season went along, specifically at some really low points, it just feels like there's more there. But when you think about the amount of talent that they've accumulated, and that starts on the offense. And I think a lot of people are going to look at what happened tonight, and the first thought, you saw it happen as the game got back into contention and as things got bad and as it slipped away, the amount of Sean Payton jokes that started tumbling out on Twitter, and that's not going to go away.
Nope.
Until the Chargers come out and explicitly say he's back or he's not. I think that he probably deserves to be. I think that they made the playoffs. I think what he did in the second half of the season, I think that you need to reevaluate everything about the offense and about the plan on offense. And who's the offensive play caller? What does our personnel look like? Do we go get some more speed? The offensive line, I think, obviously Slater got hurt. But Slater getting hurt is huge. Sawyer played well for a rookie thrust into that position.
Yes.
I think that the interior, like Fowler didn't have a good year compared to what he did last year. And then, right tackle Pipkins was hurt for most of the year. So you think about what the offensive line needs to look like personnel wise. And then you think about who the play caller needs to be and where you can inject some more explosiveness within the offense. Because that to me is, you look at the personnel and the talent. That's the thing that was missing the most. We knew that coming into the year.
We did. They
had no speed. And they had no speed at the end. Everything just felt so tight and condensed. And what Christian Kirk could provide for this team in this game for the Jags, when everything felt tight in the first half, the Chargers didn't have that guy, especially without Mike Williams. But even with him, they didn't have a guy with that level of explosiveness within the offense. So I think that's the biggest question. My concern is that there's not a lot of wiggle room with this team. They spent to win the Super Bowl this
was their
That's what they did.
Push the cap year. Yeah.
JC Jackson is making $17 million against the cap next year. JC Jackson didn't play for that defense that was one of the best defenses in the league over the second half of the season. A lot of the things about their plan coming into this year were not the reasons that they ended up being a dangerous team or looking like it by the end of the season, which is kind of funny. But what does that mean, and how does that inform the team you want to be next year as you kind of really take stock of this, if Brandon Staley is going to be the guy who stays and Tom Telesco and all that?
Right. And the bringing up Christian Kirk's a great comparison, because it's not just everyone thinks like, oh, juice to the offense, and we use that term a lot. And it's not just having a burner, just having a Khalif Raymond, which would help, don't get me wrong, but it's just having some guy that can beat man that's not pinning the ball on the guy. Keenan Allen can beat man, but it's a catch and tackle. It's angle routes where he gets catch and tackle. I love Keenan Allen, but this is just his game. This is his game. But he wins on
a 4.7 10 years ago.
Yeah, and that's all you need to say. But then you watch Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk isn't.
I love Keenan Allen.
Yeah, no, but everyone knows his game. He's old man at the Y, like that. That's what it is. And then Christian Kirk, who runs a 4.5, maybe. But he's so smooth, and he provides that separation or just that man beating ability that's at the intermediate levels. There are so many short level beaters with this Chargers offense that's like, so it's either a stop route or a back shoulder go to Mike Williams on the outside, or it's Keenan Allen winning and getting tackled right away. And so there's just not that creativeness that someone just taking it and running. Gerald Everett, but Gerald Everett's hard to rely on, especially like how you want to use him and where you want to align him. He has a limited role. And even for that, look at how Evan Ingram's used and how Gerald Everett's used. It's like Evan Ingram is just crossing guys to death, just crossing routes. You see Gerald Everett run that, but then you see him running a lot of corners and digs. And it's like, no, that it's not wrong, but it's not great. It's a lot of B- answers of how they use their personnel, but they need juice, and having juice will help find answers, because it just gives you room for error, no matter who the play caller is.
I just said I think that he deserves to stay. Would you keep him if you were the Spanos family? If you were the owners of the Chargers, would Brandon Staley be the head coach of the Chargers next year?
Yes, but you have to change the offense coordinator.
Okay. I think we're in the same place.
Staley in the second half, and that's it. We all had high expectations, and he does, like, him as a coach. That's why I keep saying X's and O's schematics did a lot, and how the team fought their asses off. Those matter when you're the defensive play caller and you're the head coach. The team responded. They didn't just watch the freaking Broncos. Watch other teams that just folded up because they didn't believe in the head coach. Those guys fought for the head coach. But you have to address the elephant in the room, which is the offensive play caller. And I think that's the caveat, or that's the one check mark that he has to mark off, checkbox he has to mark off.
That's where I land to, is that we need more out of star level quarterback and
Yep.
what we spent on receivers and all that. I think that they deserve a lot of credit for fighting through the amount of injuries that they suffered this year. I think that they deserve a lot of credit for what their defense looks like in the second half of the season, but I don't think you can get through another season with a middling offense when you have a quarterback that's as talented as the one that they have.
Correct. Just let it open up. Let it breathe. Let it breathe. They need a decanter for the offense. Just let it breathe a little bit so you actually could taste the aroma of Justin Herbert.
Jags, the most likely, will get the Chiefs next week if the Bengals and Bills take care of business tomorrow. I don't know. I'm excited to watch that game. It's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one, but I think that this is a team that has deserved our attention and deserved our enthusiasm and excitement. And tonight was an emphatic reminder of that, despite what the first half looked like.
This is the Jags all year. So much good, driving the ball, doing some cool stuff, punching himself in the nuts several times, and then coming back, and he's just like, and at the end, you just remember, you're like, wow, that was fun. And you just forget all the bad parts that happened at the beginning. This is the Jags all season. This is what they did to us. Like beginning of the year, you look at the season or you look at each game, there's a lot of this throughout the year, but they're a fun team. At least it's entertaining. That's all you can ask for. All
right. Anything else you want to say about this game?
No, that I will say, compliments to Brandon Staley. He had some cool disguises. I'll say that. Like the simulate pressure they got a sack on. That was really cool. They made Travis Etienne stay in. Sorry, I know we just were but there was some cool stuff in the first half. Trust me, I had so many notes. I was ready, and then the second half happened. But the Asante Samuel pick that we talked about again, it was really cool. Make sure you guys rewatch it if you can see the motion beforehand, because how they disguised it with Michael Davis running with the motion and then him and Derwin James switching spots and then running cover 2 was pretty sweet. That was pretty nifty. It was pretty nifty. It was that would have gotten me too, because Trevor's like, man. Okay, I don't have to read this post snap. Everything I saw was man, and then you could see his brain short circuit. That's why he didn't even want to throw it. His brain was telling him not to throw it, and he throws an interception. But I just want to bring that one up too, because that was pretty sweet.
All right, let's get to our next one here. 49ers crushed the Seahawks 41-23. Watching that game brought me back to the conversation we had about the Niners on Thursday, where the word I kept coming back to was that they feel overwhelming.
Yep.
They just feel like this force of nature that can overtake you and it doesn't take long.
No.
And that's kind of what this game felt like. I mean, obviously, especially in the second half, you could just feel what they have personnel wise and the amount of superpower that they have.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy in the second half of that game, I believe, went 9 of 11 for 185 yards.
Normal stuff.
The Seahawks were winning at halftime.
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought they played really well in the first half.
They did.
They had the quick strike touchdown to DK Metcalf. They had a methodical drive. Geno was 9 of 10 in the first half.
The ball.
Kenneth Walker had 13 carries for 54 yards. Brock Purdy was 9 of 9. Other than the McCaffrey 68-yard run, the Niners running backs had 4 carries for 0 yards in the first half. Before one of the field goals, it was a great play by Poona Ford against the run. The one punt that the Niners had, Shelby Harris threw off Trent Williams. I was like, man. And play where Metcalf ran over Javarius Ward in the flat. I was like, this team is not going to go quietly.
Yeah.
And credit to Pete Carroll, and they're showing a lot of pride. And then the second half starts, and they get absolutely boat raced.
They did. It felt like every drive of the 49ers just had an explosive play where it was just left and right, and big ones, like 30 yarders, 40 yarders. So schematically, I all year Seahawks have had some issues defending out of base personnel, and showed up today. 30%. So 49ers had 25 plays out of 21 personnel. 30% of those went for explosives. So they had 13 dropbacks. They averaged basically 1 point per dropback out of 21 personnel, and it was just the runs, the toss zones to Deebo Samuel out of the I formation, and then playing off it where they have CMC as like the lone receiver. So they run the toss play to Deebo, and then they have CMC split out. They run the same play, but then they do that dart route, which is a now route.
The slant.
Yeah, slant. And CMC's running it, but you have your running back running your dart route that usually X receivers run, and you got your wide receiver in the backfield in an I formation, and you already pitched it to your wide receiver in an I formation, and then now you have your running back getting a now route. And it's like, for a defense, it's just like, what do we do? Because you have to check into certain coverages because you don't want Debo running a man on man with the linebacker. So it's just, this offense is just overwhelming. It is. It's overwhelming to watch. I'm sure as a defender, it's just overwhelming to defend because what do? You miss one tackle and it's a score.
Brock Purdy finished the game with 332 yards on 30 attempts.
Okay.
People are going to talk a lot about the way he played and everything else. This game, first and foremost, two things. I think my biggest takeaways about the San Francisco 49ers come away from this game. Kyle Shanahan is
good,
out of this world.
Yeah.
You just talked about a lot of them. They averaged 7.9 yards per play in this game than the 49ers did. The first play that really jumps out to me is the McCaffrey run. The huge 68-yard McCaffrey run. Which we can pull up the dots for here.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful play. So they have Juszczyk, I believe, lined up in the slot on the left side. You guys can see it here. He cracks Barton inside to get an angle there. And then they have, I believe it was George Kittle coming across the formation in motion. He leads up on the corner with Ayuk going to the safety. And then you have Trent Williams doing a fantastic job on Irvin as the edge rusher, the guy on the line of scrimmage. And the moment that you see that collision with Juszczyk coming inside in the replay, it's like, oh, this is absolutely beautiful. and it looked like it. I mean, Kittle was looking for somebody to block, and it was just perfectly drawn up. It's exactly what
Tariq Woolen wanted no part of him. Kittle's right. He was like, he started backpedaling towards the sideline when he saw 85 running at him.
I mean, that was the first one where it was just like, okay, this is going to be one of those games where he's just dialing up this kind of shit. It was awesome. And then there were two completions that really jumped out. I guess three, where there was one to Ayuk early on play action. Just he sold it vertically and kind of came up over on a crosser. It was beautiful. And then there was another one where they had Danny Gray as the number one receiver on the right side and Ayuk on the left side. And they had Gray clear it out, and they ran another big play action crosser to Ayuk. Even that like small thing where you got this guy is solely there for speed, and Danny Gray, that's what he is right now. And he's clearing out that space for Ayuk. So you had two huge completions to Ayuk on play action over the middle. And then there was a third one to George Kittle in the third quarter.
Oh yeah.
That I wanted to point out.
Oh yeah.
What's beautiful about this play, and you guys can see it, they lined up in 21 personnel with Kittle and Juszczyk as tight ends to the left side. For those of you who can watch this right now, I want you to look at the amount of space between all of the receivers on the Niners here. Christian McCaffrey runs in motion. Keep it going, Bauer. Christian McCaffrey runs in motion. He's running up the right sideline. So he's pulling that corner all the way to that side. Brandon Ayuk, as the number one receiver on the right side, is running vertical and pulling the safety out that way. Debo Samuel from the backfield is running to the left flat. So you have every single yard of grass across the entire field covered. You have a vertical stretch on the play, and then Juszczyk is high-lowing the linebacker over the middle of the field, who has to make a decision between Juszczyk and Kittle, and Kittle's open by 10 yards, and Purdy puts it there. And that's what happened all game. I understand that Purdy's numbers are going to look really gaudy, but Dan Pizzuta from Sharp Football Stats put out a stat that I thought was fantastic. In this game, Brock Purdy had 2 throws into tight coverage in the game. Not just completions, 2 attempts into coverage with less than a yard of separation. This was Kyle Shanahan just playing every right note at every right moment, and the Seahawks had 0 answers whatsoever.
It was great. It was anyone knows the term brick jokes, like where something happens first and then that gets paid off later. That's what was happening in this game. That I'm glad you brought up that play action to Kittle, because even the action on it, the Dolphins love to do that action where they have the jet sweep action, it's jet sweep with a switch release. That's one way to attack a defense and make them communicate. But then they pulled the guard, Spencer Burford, who has been playing exceptional for them.
The interior of the offensive line, period, I thought has been
Daniel Brownskill has played so much better
The one team we thought, the one area coming into the season personnel-wise where I was like, was the interior of the Niners offensive line, and we don't even talk or think about it. And I think that is such a testament to the progression that's happened from that group over the course of the season.
Yeah, I mean, but just that play. No, exactly. They pull the guard, no pressure happens on it. It's nice and clean pocket. I think Debo, yeah, Debo's in the backfield. He goes strong to weak. They fake the handoff to that. And then so all this is meant to attack the linebacker. So I'm glad you brought up Juszczyk on the play because the 49ers today a lot were cross-releasing. So a back or a tight end would release through the guard in the center, a guard and tackle, and then the route would work across and it would occupy multiple intermediate defenders. So that's why those guys' eyes were just going back and forth, back and forth. And just the angles in the run game, like that, the long CMC run. There's another play because that ends up being like a pin pull with your skill guys. That's what run game is just angles. So him cracking outside, and then all of a sudden Juszczyk goes into the linebacker inside. So he's working outside. So there's your pin pull. But they had another one where they went split backs with McCaffrey and Debo. And it was where Debo kind of made about 3 guys miss. It should have been like a 1 yard gain, turned into like an 8 yard gain, which won. But this was just, it was early in the game. And so they go split backs. And usually in this look, and you'll see the Rams do it, you see the Packers do it. It's like one of the plays in the NFL. Split backs, one guy goes in a bubble motion or orbit or a jet motion. It's inside zone with a bubble. And it really is just a overhang read for the quarterback. You read this intermediate defender. Can he tackle the bubble? What the 49ers do is they show that. But instead of having a zone play, it's just a called basically bubble play. Those 2 outside receivers crack inside and CMC, who's in the backfield, leads outside. So again, it's like a pin pull with your skill guys with Debo Samuel in space. And then he ends up making guys miss. But that's just a nice like kind of like snapshot of what Kyle Shanahan does. He just creates these amazing angles for his players. And these guys, all of them could take it to the house. So it's speed with smarts, and it's just impossible to defend over time, over 60 minutes. You can't do it.
I want to talk about that, just the skill position talent in general. The last play I wanted to point out, the Jennings leak play, when it happened. So Jennings is lined up in a condensed formation. They run a play action to that side and then run a leak to that side. And I watched it happen, and I was like, looks really familiar. I remember watching that recently. And go back, look at the completions from their week 15 game. They ran pretty much the exact same design, but it was out of a double YY, what you call YY wing, the 2 tight ends on the same side. And they completed it to Tyler Kroft on the right side, almost the exact same design for a huge chunk against the Seahawks the last time these 2 teams played. And
beautiful.
It's just a little tweak on the same idea. And that is a Shanahan staple, those little tweaks on the same ideas. Yep. You talking about Debo's in orb motion. I think Debo's in the backfield and maybe McCaffrey was lined up as receiver. It reminds me of that scene from Little Giants where it's like the center's in the backfield. The quarterback's not even there. Like that's how every single 49ers offensive play feels at this point. And then
when annexation of Puerto Rico, every single play, that's what it is.
When you're combining that with, this is the other thing that really jumped out watching them again. Shocker. The skill position talent is unbelievable. It's ridiculous. In all these small moments, the Debo touchdown where he takes it the distance, that's obviously the best example where you're just spitting the ball out to a guy and he's doing something that one human being can really do, and it's him. But there were three others today that were subtler. And it was, the first one happened on a 2nd and 10 in the first half. They ran Kittle. I don't even know if it was actually a crosser. He like sat down about 4 yards past the line of scrimmage and they cleared it out for him. And Barton just couldn't chase him across the field. And he takes a 4-yard completion for 13 yards and gets a first down. It's a small thing, but being able to do that with your tight end is something this team can do that really no one else can do.
Correct.
And the biggest one, the biggest example and the best example of this kind of idea was a 3rd and 7 in the second half. And this is a play to Debo. And they just run Debo on a little crosser against Tariq Woolen. And they make Woolen carry him all the way across the field. He catches about 3 yards past the line of scrimmage on a 3rd and 7. And what should be a 5-yard, 6-yard gain on 3rd and 7, Debo catches it in traffic, manages to make the linebacker miss and run into Woolen, and then turns a 3-yard completion into a 20-yard gain while breaking 2 more tackles. And it just happens all the time.
Yeah.
In this game, the Niners averaged 10.85 yards after completion per catch.
A first
Some
down.
of that is driven up by the 66 yards on the Debo touchdown. But plays like this are commonplace for them, where you have a 3-yard completion on 3rd and 7 turn into a 25-yard explosive gain simply because of the guy who's catching the ball.
Right.
And they've got a bunch of those guys. And that came up over and over again today. I thought Purdy played fine. He didn't make a big mistake. But even the throw to Jennings, he leaves that inside when he shouldn't. And so he's doing enough. But this idea that, the story of this game is Brock Purdy and what he's accomplished is I just don't agree with that. I think that his 2 best plays were probably the escape to Elijah Mitchell and the touchdown that Brandon Ayuk dropped.
Yeah, I'm not Purdy play fine. I mean, but are we honestly that blind? How many throws were these guys were catching behind him? Like, come on, like the first
wide open
first 9 throws, wide open guys are behind. Like, I mean. Yeah, I felt like a lot like when they would show like AJ McCarron as like a Heisman candidate in college, and he's like throwing a screen, and some receivers taking it 80 yards, and he's fist pumping, and then they show him in slow motion. I'm like, show the receiver running 80 yards for a score. They did that a couple times where Debo scoring, and they're showing Purdy fist pumping. It's like, yeah, did a lot. He played fine. But no, I just this combo of like this juice that they have, Purdy being effective with the ball and finding the right throws, and then just the little dial up Shanahan has was the first play of the 2-minute drive in the first half. It was about a minute left. It goes to Ayuk. It had 10 yards after the catch, actually. So right on the average of the day. Seahawks are in 3-match. There was a lot of 3-match was the coverage of the day for both games. And it was just this little subtle thing. So it was under center. CMC is in the home position. Normal, think of we're running back alliance. I don't have the gift for this. So everybody gets the audible version of this. So CMC does they do the little short motion with him, even though he's in the home position. We've talked about this play, and usually they'll have him run vertical on this. Why this all matters is the first play in the 2-minute drive. They motion him out. Being in 3-match, Tariq Woolen is a rookie. He had a rough day. He looked like a rookie today. His head pops because he goes, am I still man on Ayuk? Or do I have CMC because he's number 1 now? But they snap the ball before he's all the way outside. Even though he runs a 4.3 and change at whatever he is, 6'4", that split second of hesitation, Ayuk just runs across, catches it, 30-something yard gain, first play. And that's what all that is. It's just that little window dressing to make the opposition, the opposing team, hesitate. And then these guys just open it up. Like it's room for error with room for error that just creates this just magic sometimes. That just little play right there is just a little window dressing on something simple and turns into a 30-something yard gain. And it was just little stuff like that. It's entertaining to watch and watch it all build off each other, like the layers of it all.
You talking about you see something early and then it comes back. It's like Shanahan's offense, like Chekhov's motion. Like if it happens early on, it's coming back later. It's kind of what it feels. Where he's planting these little seeds.
That's exactly it. Chekhov's motion. I love that.
A lot of people, I think, when the discussion was happening about Purdy today, it was like, well, why haven't the Niners been like this before? If the quarterback isn't a huge part of this, then why couldn't Jimmy G do it? Jimmy G was doing this before he got hurt when McCaffrey got there. Since McCaffrey got there and since the offense has had this group of skill position talent, they were rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, like absolutely rolling. This version of the Niners is still relatively new with all of these guys, because you have McCaffrey, who's been there since the middle of the season. Ayuk has not always been this version of Brandon Ayuk where he's, I don't know, a top 15 receiver in the league, probably like in that general range.
I mean, he is. He was somehow he's become an afterthought, even though it's like everybody's breakout candidate. He broke out. Like he was a really good
1,000 yards
player.
this year. He was their leading receiver, and he is a dynamic player.
Yeah, he'd be the guy every other team would dial up plays for. Yes, you know what I mean. And he's just an afterthought at times from this offense.
Yes, and that was not always the case. He was in the doghouse for the first half of last season, and so this version of who they are is different. And I think that's why the machine feels different, and it is so dynamic and so dominant with acceptable quarterback play. And I think that it would probably look like this if Garoppolo was in there, based on the way that they're playing right now, maybe with 1 or 2 off-schedule plays that Purdy can make that maybe Garoppolo couldn't, because he can extend some stuff and he has that escapability. So I think that's important to acknowledge as to where this team is and why they're having this sort of just, again, overwhelming success on offense. And we haven't even talked about defense.
The
And it
Banshees.
doesn't really matter. I mean,
It doesn't.
they made a couple big plays today, but they could have given up 35 and it wouldn't have mattered in this game because of the way that the offense played.
Oh, I know. They squeeze. I mean, the Seahawks, the touchdown of DK Metcalf was beautiful offensive football. That I'll call it that. They wadded it up, blocked up the splits, go ball, take your one-on-one. That's what DK Metcalf is supposed to win. He was up for the challenge today, Metcalf was, but that's the thing with this 49ers defense. They just squeeze everything else. They make the run game hard because even if you get a good run, you try to go back to it, boom, they're popping you. They squeeze everything. If you want to check it down, they make you scramble. And when you're scrambling, you're running for your life. You're trying to run naked boots for, lonesomes is what they call it. Gino's trying to run for it. You got another guy on the 49ers, not one of the all pros, making the tackle for a TFL to save it. Like, this whole defense just plays with an attitude and just so much speed that even when they get kind of bloodied, their lips bloodied a little bit, they come back and make huge plays. Seahawks are driving, they get the strip sack on Gino. And that's just a big play and a big moment for them. And it's not like it got lucky where, well, if that didn't happen, I was like, yeah, but Seahawks kind of lost it there. That was their window because that 49ers defense is going to start just squeezing and just pinning their ears back, just like they did.
And as soon as you give them an inch, it's over. And that's what happened today. As soon as that play happened, the floodgates open and the game just ends. And even that play, Bosa gets really good initial pressure. They have a really cool looking stunt where they have an overload on the right side. They have a long loop with Amenahu coming all the way back across, and he makes the play. Amenahu's not as good of a player as Brandon Ayuk, by the way. But the fact that a guy like Charles Amenahu is like the third or fourth player on the Niners front, and he's somebody that I think is a pretty good player. They just have those guys all over the place. Tayshaun Gibson made a big play today.
Yeah, he did. That was the play I was talking about. It was Tayshaun Gibson coming down on running down Gino. But yes, sorry.
That was it was funny because the play design of that play, this is not worth getting into, but I thought it was interesting. They had Parkinson as the offset in the gun as the second back in the backfield. And they had him come across the formation, I assume to be a lead blocker on that play for Gino. If that doesn't happen, I think he gets the first down. Because that's the only reason that Gibson got pulled that way is because they were in man coverage and he was covering Parkinson. If they had just left Nick Bosa unblocked on that play, I think that he gets an easy first down.
It's the worst. I hate when that happens, especially in man coverage. They just bring it over. But no, hey, you got to make the play still. You got Gino. Gino's a tough runner. He's not the fastest in the world, but he's a tough runner. He's long. But what's his face? Oh no, but it's just a different guy. Oh, what's his face? But like then Eric Armstead steps up, and you're like, oh yeah,
comparison to the Ayuk of the defense.
But it's like, oh yeah, this guy, this guy's really good too. Like they just have dudes, they just have dudes on all three levels, and I mean, just a fast team. That's what it is. They just play fast and angry.
We're now looking at the idealized version of what the Niners have wanted to be under Kyle Shanahan. Like this is the ultimate realization of his ideas and his plans, and it's made possible by the McCaffrey trade. And now the fact that they have these skill position players that you comparing to them, the Warriors is right in the sense that one of the reasons the Warriors were so dominant on those teams is that the alike body types and the ability and what it gives you on defense, it's the inverse of that for an offensive football team.
Right.
And the fact that you have all these guys that can switch everything essentially, it really makes them dangerous.
It is.
And you see that all the time with them. And it is very, very cool to watch. And this is watching this game and watching what the second half of the season has wrought is watching Kyle Shanahan's masterpiece. Like this that is what we're watching right now. And it is very cool. As somebody who is, I think both of us, have kind of always watched him with a real reverence based on what he could do. And if you go look at Nick Mullins' stats in the San Francisco 49ers offense, that's all you really need to understand what Kyle Shanahan can do for a quarterback and for a team. And now you give him this personnel playing this way, this is the final result. I know the Seahawks defense isn't great. It's beyond the Seahawks defense. They have transcended who they're playing against here.
Well, I feel like Shanahan's offense for years and what people pictured it as, really what it was. I mean, just picture the Texans and everything. It was like, okay, outside zone and nakeds, bootlegs and outside zones and death by 8-yard gains, death by 6-yard gains. That's what they get. And then they bootleg you for a 20-yard over and they just do it over and over and make Matt Schaub look like an all-pro. But then I think, like you said, this is his, almost his magnus opus, not even this in the 2016 Falcons, is because I mean, every one of these plays can go literally get taken to the house. Like it's every play that they run, which is awesome because he's dialing up guys hitting like you're seeing CMC catch or Debo catching these toss plays. They don't get contacted till like 7 yards down the field.
Wow.
And then they run a pass play and there's over routes where guys are wide open, but it's not just, there's so many times where you see these offenses, we laugh like, oh, Shanahan wants to make the play on the expert mode. That's why he's playing this guy over this guy. But now you're seeing it's like now he's doing all the stuff he was doing, but playing an easy mode where it's like, hey, I just run a naked and it should be a 12-yard gain. And that's what I used to make my living off. But then there's Debo Samuel taking it, to the house. And that's the difference. It's just what should have been 6-yard gains turned to 60-yard gains. But it's not just one guy, it's the entire offensive skill position, or at least 4 of them. And Harrison Barnes, juice check.
Yeah, very useful. I mean, that
very useful.
What he can do is a necessary
Seriously,
component
though,
who they are.
Yes. The fact that he can split out and crack linebackers, and then on the next play he's in the backfield, next play he's a tight end. It's so useful.
It's because it's 21, but it's 12, and then like it's the alignments.
11. Yeah.
They can live in 21, but they can do whatever they want. And I think that is a really key component. The fact that, because in 21, your tight end is somebody who can give you some juice vertically because the type of athlete he is.
But then he could be in the backfield pass protecting. And then it's disgusting.
It really, man. It's unbelievable.
It is. It's awesome.
All right. Let's do a little postmortem here for the Seahawks.
Okay.
A disappointing end to the season, but playing with house money a little bit. We've been talking about this for a couple weeks or a couple months. This team was supposed to be bottom of the barrel, rebuilding, and to be a playoff team and to look like they did. And even today, again, going back to that first half, I'm sitting there watching them being like, man, Pete Carroll, 71-year-old Pete Carroll, and being able to kind of get his guys up to meet the moment in that first half before they just get overwhelmed by the talent on the other side of the ball. He's been very good at this for a very long time. And I think that this season with a team that was this young and had this many holes on it, and to be able to put together the year that they had was incredibly impressive. And the reports right now are that Geno will be back next year. He said he expects to be back. Curious what that looks like. Is it a 2-year contract? Is it longer than that? Mm-hmm. Can they not come to the right extension? Because this is a weird area. This middle-class quarterback contract world looks like. It's hard to figure out. It's hard to navigate. So I really am curious to see what that number is if they get to an extension or if they get to a place where it ends up being the tag because they can't figure that out. He deserves to be back the way that he played. I think that he keeps them competitive next year with all of the resources that they have. Mm-hmm. This team has $48 million in cap space before whatever they figure out with Geno. So if that's the tag, that obviously is a huge chunk of it. But if not, then you can get him playing on a $20 million tag or cap hit. It's, you still have $30 million in space, whatever moves you make. Plus, this team has the 5th pick in the first round, the 20th pick in the first round, the 38th pick, and the 54th pick. They have 4 top 54 picks.
Pretty fun. And you made the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's fun. No, they can kind of choose your adventure a little bit in a good way. I think, I would assume that Geno's coming back. I think you can do that because they nailed this last draft. I mean, they really did. They got a lot of starters, good starters. They might get 2 tackles in the same draft. They got an all-pro, a guy that was fighting for all-pro. He was a Pro Bowl corner as a rookie, which would usually be a big deal if there wasn't another Pro Bowl all-pro corner this year. They got, the guy that they traded first-round picks was even playing this year in Jamal Adams. They found some other interesting pieces, Wosu. Other guys stepped up. But I just think that's what's nice is that they can kind of do what they want with Geno, and then they can kind of choose who else are their pieces, their building blocks. That's what's nice about kind of where they're at on top of adding young talent. They can draft a quarterback, have him go behind Geno, which is also another fun path they can go down. But I think this was a house money year for them. Pete got those guys up, and it wasn't lucky. Like their offense played legit well for a long time. They had some blemishes at the end of the year. The defense improved for a while and came back down, but they punched above their weight all year, but also has some interesting young pieces. So it wasn't just like pure luck where you're like, who else do they can build around? So awesome year for them. Awesome year for Seattle fans. Go Mariners. The Kraken look good. Now the Seahawks, so not a bad year. I can't remember what the Sounders did. Oh, they didn't win the MLS Cup. I know that, but it's like, the Sounders also too, but good year for Seattle fans.
They can hunt for an edge rusher in the top 10, which I think makes sense. A lot of Bruce Irvin snaps today. There's been a lot of Bruce Irvin over the second half.
Bruce Irvin in coverage, which is not what you want in 2023, really.
So you try to remake the defense with some of those resources and just see where you can get on that side of the ball. But I think a real testament to that organization and to Pete Carroll, that there were real questions coming into the season about, a rebuilding team and a 70-something coach. And does he really want to be a part of this? I mean, that seems like pretty long in the tooth to be starting over again with a young roster. And it was really, really good. It was really impressive. Like what they did. The final result is, again, just a reminder that Pete Carroll has been an excellent head football coach in this league for a very long time. And you talk about punching above your weight. I think he's been able to get his guys to do that for better part of a decade now.
He knows how to do it, man.
What is the worst season that Pete Carroll has had as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks? It was last year, right?
Last year.
They were 7-10 last season. All right. Before that, the last time that the Seahawks finished below 500 was 2011. They went 7-9, 11-5, 13-3, 12-4, 10-6, 10-5-1, 9-7, 10-6, 11-5, 12-4, and then 9-8 this year in another trip to the playoffs.
It's a lot of wins.
It's a lot of wins.
Yep. A couple of DVOA championships in there.
A lot of DVOA championships in there.
But that speaks to them. Like they've always been. It's been real good teams, not like they got lucky this year and their expected win losses this. Like no, when they won 11 games, they won those 11 games. That's how it always felt like with them.
So credit to them and credit to the really good first step in their rebuilding process. And we'll see what step 2 looks like next year.
Yeah.
All right.
It was a fun year for them.
That's all we got.
We did it. First day.
I was not ready. I was not ready for what that first game, with that second game and the pivot that was necessary. It really reminded me of you're in a press box and you think you're going to write one thing and then the game changes at the end and you're just looking at a blank screen. And that's kind of what that felt like. And that's an exciting moment. I mean, I've been part of plenty of those. I was at the 28-3 Super Bowl. It was the 5-year anniversary of the Minneapolis Miracle, and I was there. I mean, I've seen some pretty wild shit live, and everyone that was at that Jags-Chargers game today, I'm sure was going through a very similar experience. And when you are there for that sort of moment in a playoff game, that sticks with you. It's pretty damn cool. And so it really brought me back. I had that panic that I was feeling in the 15 minutes before we started recording.
Yeah, it's always good when you see, some like in cold weather games, especially you see the big drunk guys with their shirts off, like to start the game. Jags fans were taking them off as the game was going, and it wasn't because they were going into the pool in the upper deck. that was that atmosphere today. It was the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, part 2, or at least the first one before the one comes this fall for 2023.
Congrats to those guys.
That was an awesome game for them.
I hope they enjoy it. Their prizes that they get to go play Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead next week.
Have fun. All right, go get him, Tiger. No, it's gonna be a great game though. I'm stoked for that game.
All right, if you guys have not, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm gonna try to do this with these games. Obviously the primetime games. There's only one thing to watch. We're gonna try to provide some examples of the plays that we're talking about. Little things like that. We're still learning on the go here. I appreciate you guys kind of going along on the ride with us. We will be back here again tomorrow night doing the same thing. Talking about the 3 games that are going to happen tomorrow. So in the meantime, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to The Athletic. TheAthletic.com/football show is where you can do that. Same time-ish, same place tomorrow. Until then, we really appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you soon.